In this podcast episode, Balaji Srinivasan, a prominent tech entrepreneur and thought leader, discusses the critical importance of realism in economic and political discourse. He explores the interconnectedness of economic challenges, political polarization, and the shifting landscape of U.S. China relations, while also examining the implications of decentralized finance and the role of tech companies in shaping the future of governance. Srinivasan critiques the tendency to label those who express concerns about the economy as doomers or negativity, arguing that acknowledging potential issues is a necessary form of realism. He points to the Federal Reserve, particularly under Jerome Powell's leadership, as a focal point for blame regarding economic challenges such as inflation and financial instability. He suggests that the consequences of the Fed's actions, particularly the printing of money, are often overlooked or misunderstood by the public. Srinivasan elaborates on the canary in the coal mine effect, where the repercussions of financial decisions are not immediately visible. He argues that the financial system is structured in a way that allows those in power to benefit from the initial influx of printed money, while the broader population suffers from the resulting inflation. This dynamic creates a hidden taxation effect, eroding the wealth of the general populace without their awareness. He emphasizes that the real culprits behind economic issues are not the individuals discussing them, but rather the policymakers and financial institutions that create these conditions. The discussion also touches on the historical context of economic crises, noting that many countries have experienced significant upheaval due to financial mismanagement. Srinivasan highlights that the U.S. has been relatively insulated from such crises compared to other nations, but warns that this could change if current trends continue. He cautions that the U.S. is at risk of facing its own economic apocalypse if the underlying issues are not addressed. Shifting to political dynamics, Srinivasan argues that the U.S. is increasingly divided along partisan lines. He presents data showing that Congress has become more polarized over the past several decades, with Democrats and Republicans voting in opposition to one another more frequently. This polarization extends to social networks, where individuals are less likely to interact with those from the opposing party. He notes that this division is not merely ideological, but has become a fundamental aspect of identity, akin to tribalism. Srinivasan draws parallels between the current political climate in the U.S. and historical conflicts in other regions, suggesting that the deepening divide could lead to significant social unrest. He argues that the legacy of founders and the actions of their successors play a crucial role in shaping the trajectory of a nation. Founders often establish foundational principles and systems, while their successors are responsible for maintaining and innovating upon those systems. However, he warns that when successors lack the vision or capability to adapt to changing circumstances, the systems can become stagnant or even detrimental. Srinivasan emphasizes the importance of recognizing the interconnectedness of economic and political factors. He argues that the current financial strategies employed by the government and the Federal Reserve are not sustainable and could lead to severe consequences for the economy and society at large. He advocates for a more realistic approach to understanding these dynamics, urging listeners to consider the long-term implications of current policies and the potential for systemic collapse. Srinivasan highlights the dramatic shifts in political stances regarding COVID-19 and vaccines, noting how both Democrats and Republicans have changed their positions based on tribal affiliations rather than consistent ideological beliefs. Initially, when the pandemic began, Trump downplayed the virus, leading Democrats to advocate for lockdowns and stricter measures. However, as Trump promoted Operation Warp Speed to expedite vaccine development, Democrats expressed vaccine hesitancy, with figures like Kamala Harris stating they would not take a Trump vaccine. This flip-flopping illustrates a broader trend where political allegiance dictates responses to public health crises rather than a unified approach based on scientific consensus. Srinivasan argues that this behavior reflects a disunited states, where the American flag has become a contested symbol rather than a unifying one. He posits that the only common ground among Americans is their reliance on the dollar, which serves as an economic glue holding the country together. He suggests that the U.S. is increasingly resembling an economic union similar to the European Union, where the dollar's value is paramount, and any significant currency crisis could lead to further fragmentation. While the podcast does not delve deeply into the specifics of U.S. and China's counterterrorism policies or Xinjiang, it does touch on the broader geopolitical implications of China's rising influence. Srinivasan notes that China has developed a new diplomatic muscle, exemplified by its role in facilitating a peace treaty between Saudi Arabia and Iran. This shift indicates China's growing power in the Middle East and its ability to unify countries around its interests, contrasting with the U.S.'s waning influence in the region. Srinivasan emphasizes that the U.S. is facing challenges in maintaining its global hegemony, particularly as countries like Iraq and Brazil begin to engage more economically with China, often opting for trade in yuan rather than dollars. This trend suggests a potential decline in the dollar's status as the world's reserve currency, as nations seek alternatives to mitigate their reliance on the U.S. financial system. Srinivasan discusses the role of gold and Bitcoin as potential Schelling points in a decentralized financial landscape. He argues that as countries move away from the dollar, they may increasingly turn to gold and Bitcoin as alternative stores of value. He points out that while the dollar remains dominant, the trend of dollarization is decentralization, where countries diversify their reserves and explore other currencies, including cryptocurrencies. He highlights the growing interest in gold, particularly among foreign nations, as they reduce their holdings in U.S. treasuries. This shift indicates a broader trend of countries seeking tangible assets like gold to hedge against the volatility of fiat currencies. Srinivasan also notes that Bitcoin could serve a similar purpose, providing a decentralized alternative that is not subject to the same risks as traditional currencies. Srinivasan posits that Bitcoin could potentially have $1 million future, suggesting that its value may significantly increase as it becomes more integrated into the global financial system. He emphasizes the growing recognition of Bitcoin's importance, noting that it has already gained traction among various governments and financial institutions. He draws parallels between the current state of cryptocurrency and the political significance of social media during the Arab Spring, indicating that just as social media became a crucial tool for political movements, cryptocurrency is poised to play a vital role in future economic and political landscapes. Srinivasan critiques the financial products offered by Wall Street, highlighting how they can often mislead consumers. He explains that the financial system is structured in a way that can obscure the true nature of transactions, making it difficult for individuals to understand the risks involved. He uses the example of teaser rates on mortgages, which may initially appear attractive but can lead to significant financial distress for borrowers when rates increase. This reflects a broader culture in finance where parties are often trying to outmaneuver each other, leading to a zero-sum game mentality. Srinivasan contrasts the short-term stability of fiat currencies with the long-term volatility of cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. He acknowledges that while fiat currencies may experience a gradual decline in purchasing power over time, they provide a level of stability that allows for planning and economic activity in the short run. In contrast, cryptocurrencies can exhibit significant price fluctuations, which can deter their use as a stable medium of exchange. He discusses the concept of hormesis, suggesting that a certain level of volatility can be beneficial for adaptation and growth, but too much volatility can be detrimental. He argues that the current financial system is attempting to maintain stability while borrowing from the future, which could lead to a significant crash if not managed properly. Srinivasan concludes that the future of finance may hinge on whether governments can effectively seize digital assets. He expresses concern about the power of major tech companies like Apple, Google, and Microsoft, which have the ability to access and potentially control digital assets. This could create a scenario where governments exert control over cryptocurrencies, impacting their role in the economy. He envisions a future where communities can establish their own digital economies, akin to the historical land purchases and settlements, if governments fail to seize these assets effectively. Srinivasan discusses the historical parallels between early 20th century journalism and modern tech founders, emphasizing a significant shift in power dynamics. He draws a comparison between the confrontations faced by journalists like Ida Tarbell, who challenged industrialists like Rockefeller, and the current landscape where tech founders have gained substantial influence over media narratives. In the early 1900s, journalists played a crucial role in exposing the monopolistic practices of powerful figures, leading to government interventions and trust-busting measures. Conversely, from 2013 to 2021, tech founders have managed to assert their dominance, utilizing platforms like Twitter and Substack to bypass traditional media channels and shape public discourse. Srinivasan highlights the unfolding of history as a complex process, akin to origami, where similar themes and figures reemerge in different contexts. He posits that the centralizing technologies that dominated the 20th century, such as mass media and production, have given way to a decentralizing trend in the 21st century. This shift is characterized by the rise of individual voices and alternative media, which challenge the established narratives propagated by traditional journalism. He further elaborates on the historical context of nation-states, noting that the centralization of power was a response to the need for defense and resource management. The unification of territories, as seen in the formation of modern states like Germany and Italy, often required strong leadership and a cohesive ideology. Srinivasan argues that the current trend towards decentralization is a reaction against the centralized structures that have dominated for decades, suggesting that we are witnessing a re-unbundling of power. The conversation shifts to the implications of digital asset seizure and its potential impact on future governance. Srinivasan warns that as governments grapple with the challenges posed by decentralized technologies, they may resort to more authoritarian measures to maintain control. The ability to seize digital assets could become a pivotal tool for governments, raising concerns about individual freedoms and the balance of power between citizens and the state. Srinivasan concludes that the current moment is marked by a tension between centralization and decentralization, with the potential for both positive and negative outcomes. The rise of tech founders and alternative media represents a challenge to traditional power structures, but it also raises questions about governance, accountability, and the future of democratic institutions. The interplay between these forces will shape the trajectory of society in the coming years, as the world navigates the complexities of a rapidly changing technological landscape.